So I'd like to welcome Josefina Guerra. Josefina is a licensed clinical social worker. She goes by Josie and is also an organizational leader. Thank you so much for joining me today, Josie, to speak about women making history now. And you are definitely a woman making history now, so thank you.
Thank you, Amira, for this invitation. I'm honored to be here today.
My pleasure. So Josie, how are you making history now in terms of the work that you're doing? You're doing so much.
It does feel like I'm doing so much. In the midst of a pandemic, I really felt kind of like this urgency to accelerate the plans that I had set forth for tomorrow, or like what used to be what I consider my long-term goal, all of a sudden became my immediate goal, or like something to want to acquire within a year. So currently, I am the Senior Director for Early Childhood Services in a nonprofit agency. I'm also a psychotherapist and consultant in the Christian community through Mana Ministry. Mana is MHANA, and it stands for Mujeres Hispanas Alcanzando Nuevas Alturas, and it translates to Hispanic Women Reaching New Heights. And I feel like I'm making history now, right? Just by the mere fact that I'm living through a pandemic. I made history. It's like when we heard about the Spanish flu and we heard about other things like during the life that I've lived so far, I'm like, wow, how did those people survive? What did they do? So just by the mere fact that God has sustained me up until this point, I feel like I am making history and I'm going down somewhere as a survivor, hopefully,
Absolutely.
Yeah, I also, in terms of work, I provide support, ongoing training, supervision, and mentoring in 5 different programs and 2 satellite clinics in the community. In regards to the Christian work, I provide, I have announcements, they call them capsules, mental health capsules, that air in the radio, a Christian radio talk show. It's called Radio Visión Cristiana. And then it's like a 1-minute capsule that describes depression, anxiety, post-traumatic stress, and ADHD. And then people call a number, kind of like a hotline. And then I provide a conversation with them. I do 3 sessions. Some of them I keep on for short-term treatment, and others I just do assessment and referral to other outpatient mental health clinics. I also provide workshops, trainings to the Christian community and the church clergy through the Mana Ministry.
That's absolutely amazing, Josie. I love the fact that you're a mental health expert. Besides being an organizational leader, you're a mental health expert, and you are here offering this one-on-one with people and also educating them about mental health. And we know that, it's not always easy to spread that information. So the fact that you are doing it and doing it this way, I think is absolutely phenomenal. That's terrific. You're definitely making history by doing that. And just thank you. That's terrific. So Josie, what's important to you about the work that you do?
Oh, so many things are important, but I would say that the most important thing right now are the children. And, this has changed, like what becomes important based on where I'm at in my career. So most recently, I feel like families and children are the most important because that is the future. And like I mentioned before, like living through a pandemic, it really impacted their ability to socialize, to go to school. Like what we saw were like normative steps and phases that children had to go through were impacted by that. And then that was going to set a tone for them in terms of their future and how they were going to perceive what is socialization, what is going to school. And so I believe that if we don't feed our future, we have no future, right? So all children happen to be important to me. I also feel like I need to bring my full self to the work. I am Dominican. I identify as Black woman. And I feel like still people say, oh, there's culturally competent services, there's this, and the reality is that when you get to the nitty-gritty of it, there's still so much work to be done in the Latino community and providing Spanish-speaking services as well as services that are culturally and religiously appropriate. So I find that that's important to me, to make sure that I hire, sustain, retain BIPOC, bicultural, bilingual staff. And lastly, I would say that it's important that I bring my full self to the work every day, all the pieces of me. Sometimes I want to leave them home.
I love it, Josie.
But you gotta become your full self. And the clients would test you, they would try you, are you Spanish enough? Are you Dominican enough? Do you speak
Mm,
enough Spanish? Where exactly are you from? And
mm,
so you can't leave those parts of you out. There are what makes the work even more rich and more helpful. So all of those things are
mhm.
important to me, the children and bringing my full self to the work every day.
That's absolutely terrific. And I think that that's probably like a key to your success, right? Like the fact that you do bring your full self and all that. And it's not only just you, but you're also inspiring staff, you're inspiring clinicians, you're leading as an example, you're doing that within the organizations that you're in. And you're impacting the clients, so I feel like there's so much meaning to the fact that you are bringing your full self forward in that way, and I think that's absolutely terrific, so that's wonderful. So Josie, if you were to think about how your work helps others, what would you say about that?
Well, I would have to say that I'm glad that you brought up the piece about the Latino community, because early on in my career, 20 plus years of experience, I would get grouped or hired based on the fact that I could look many different like Afro Latino, like I could be Cuban, I could
Mm,
be Puerto Rican, I could be Dominican, plus the Spanish language. But early on, I learned to really make space for intergenerational, historical, but most importantly, immigration trauma and like all the things that people
mhm.
go through to come to the better America, to this better place. And then what happens once they get here, right? Like when the reality hits and all the other things that they have to deal with, including the mourning and the losses. I've had the privilege of working with folks whose immigration process was just traumatic and terrible. And
Yeah.
different people from different countries, the experience is always completely different. Like, no, you may think,
Mm,
well, it's pretty straightforward. You apply, you wait, you get married, or no. And so I've been
mhm.
honored to be able to listen to these stories, to have folks trust me and be able to tell me like the things that really affected them and how the experience, like the perceive, right? Like the anticipation of coming to America and like what was that like? How was that
Yeah.
celebrated? The
Hmm.
actuality of the journey. And now, being a new immigrant and having to acculturate
Hmm.
and having to assimilate into a society where they don't always feel fully accepted or belonging.
Yeah, absolutely. I love the fact that you're putting voice to this. And I remember a training that I went to some time ago when I first started to, become familiar with trauma work. And one of the things that they talked about is when you're working with a population that has immigrated, the first story that you might want to ask them is what their immigration experience was like, because those experiences are often just fraught with trauma. So I think that it's really just amazing that you're able to do that, to understand that, to teach that, and to help others work through that. So Josie, how have you made a difference? And of course, keeping client confidentiality in mind, right? But when you think about either an individual, a community, a group, a family, an organization, even, what are you comfortable with sharing in terms of like a short story or an example of how you've made a difference? Again, keeping confidentiality in mind.
Absolutely. Through the work with the Christian community, I received a referral and I worked with a woman and she was experiencing severe depression, also had immigration trauma. And she said,
Mm-hmm.
I can't believe you're a real person. And I said, I'm more than a voice. We can actually Zoom if you have the capacity on your phone, or we can WhatsApp video chat so that you can see me. And just her like being able to know me, hear me, experience me through the virtual platform that we were utilizing
Wow.
helped her calm down significantly, because she said she had called so many places that were like
Mm,
designated as hotlines, but she actually never spoke to a live person. Like, and part of the thing was the
mm,
Spanish, not being able to connect in Spanish or understanding the prompts to press. She was also uninsured, as she is undocumented.
mm.
And, she shared with me her story. And through our relationship, I learned just how deep her depression was and that she was suicidal and actually had a plan. And I was able to help her get assistance in another state. And I stayed with her on the phone until EMS got there, until she was taken. And cases like this are typical
Wow.
of the consultation work that I do through the Christian community. So it's more than one case. And
Mm,
I felt like I was really able to make a difference beyond what I thought. Because of course I know all my resources in New York City. I know mobile crisis, I know the precinct, I know
mhm.
most of the, domestic violence units, the officers
Yeah.
to call. But this was really
Mm,
like a testament to how well when the network, the safety network that is there for folks that need services with mental health needs really works. That was a real
mhm.
testament. And she actually made it to the right hospital. She got the right care, and it was in the right language. And she got discharged on medication, and we still have a connection today. And I think for me, I was
Wow.
like, wow, I was able to do all this in the midst of a pandemic. Like,
Right. Yeah. Mhm.
and the
It's
police came
amazing.
over before the EMS, Amira, and they were sensitive, and they heard me, and
Oh,
I said, she's not gonna hurt herself or other people. She just really needs to get to a hospital. She needs a psychiatric evaluation. And I was so grateful that they were able to hear me. And all I could hear was like, put your mask
mhm.
on, put your mask on. And I was like,
Right,
okay,
right, right.
things are going well, because it can go very
Yeah,
different. It can go very different
absolutely.
for our
And we all
community.
we all fear that. Mhm.
Yes.
Absolutely. Josie, I mean, just hearing you say, right, like that you were able to help her get emergency care when she really needed it, emergency mental health care, and that you were that other person on the line. And then to hear you say that that's a common thing that happens, that just really struck me. And just to know the amount of people out there who are struggling in this way, who are calling these hotlines and helplines and don't speak the language of the people answering the phone, and there's no one there on those hotlines to be able to speak their language, which is necessary, right? But it just really tells me that you're doing like such incredibly important and necessary work. So I just want to say thank you. Just thank you so much for all that you're doing and for all of the people whose lives you're impacting. People, families, and communities. So Josie Guerra, thank you so much for your organizational leadership, for your consultancy, for your clinical skill set and use and all that you're doing.
Thank you, Amira. This was a wonderful opportunity and a good way for all of us to kind of evaluate where are we, what do we want to do? Did the pandemic accelerate your plans as well, or are you like procrastinating and don't want to go get it?
Right.
So one of the beautiful things that I was able to do during my time of being in quarantine, like isolation, like everybody else, I
Mhm.
have been writing a book. The title is Pensamientos, Palabras y Poesías, and it translates to just thoughts, reflections, and poems. And I
Mm.
opened up a Facebook page where I have snippets of the book, and that's the name of the page, Pensamientos, Palabras y Poesías. And people actually interact and they say, oh, wow, this touched me too, or I experienced this. Do you have more of this poem? And sometimes I'll say, if you give me a one-on-one call, we can actually, I can give you the full poem or the full reflection,
Wow.
the
Mhm.
thoughts. So it's been really a platform where I've been able to engage with Christian as well as non-Christian
Mhm.
community. So I just want to say that this is a time of opportunity. Like, a lot of us say this is a time of crises, but crisis is also a time of opportunity. Go get it. Go get
Mm.
it.
Thank you so much, Josie. And if it's okay, I'll also share that link in the narrative, if that's okay with you. All right,
Absolutely. And
terrific.
you can share the Mana Ministry organization in case someone is interested in connecting with other Christian women who are struggling or seeking or
Mhm.
helping with mental health issues. And that is MHANA.org, mana.org,
Okay, terrific.
www.mana.org. And folks can connect with me on LinkedIn if interested.
Terrific. Thank you so much, Josie. I so appreciate you. Have
Thank
a
you.
great rest of your day.
Thank
Okay,
you too. Bye-bye.
bye-bye.